Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're looking at something, oh, it's a little different, but I think it'll be pretty fun to dig into. We're going to be talking about Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, and the NFL.
An interesting combination for sure.
Yeah, you don't always see pop stars and football colliding like this, but that's what makes it so fascinating to look at. So we've got some really cool stuff to dig into today. We've got research papers on Taylor Swift's entire career, articles about how celebrity couples work, reports on how the NFL brands itself,
Oh, yeah.
and we've even got some analysis of all the media hype around Swift and Kelce.
So, a lot of different angles to explore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's jump in and see what we can uncover about this unlikely pairing and how it's shaking things up in both music and football.
Sounds good to me.
First off, let's talk about Taylor Swift's influence, because she's way more than just a singer.
Right. Oh, definitely. She's built this incredibly devoted fan base. I mean, these Swifties, as they're called, they're not just casually listening to her music. They're really engaged with her as a brand and a person.
Yeah. So that makes her a marketing powerhouse, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. There's research that highlights her partnership with Apple Music a few years back. Their subscriptions jumped by 78% after she came on board.
Whoa, that's a huge impact. But is that just star power, or was it something more?
Well, the research suggests it wasn't just a temporary boost. Apple Music really used that momentum to solidify their spot in the market.
Wow. So it had a lasting effect.
It seems that way. And her influence goes beyond just music, too. Fashion.
Oh, yeah. I've heard she's a big style icon.
Definitely. The Fashion Institute of Technology did a survey, and 70% said Taylor Swift influences their fashion choices.
Wow, that's a lot of people. So she's clearly got a massive reach. Now, let's bring Travis Kelce into the mix. The media has really embraced this couple.
Oh, yeah. It's been a whirlwind. But it's more than just a typical Hollywood romance. They're being called this ultimate power couple, which elevates both their brands, of course.
And do you think this power couple idea,
Yeah.
is it impacting how people see relationships in general?
I think it is. We're seeing phrases like, treat me how Travis Kelce treats Taylor Swift everywhere, which shows how these narratives really seep into our culture.
It's like they've set a new standard. Maybe a good one, maybe not.
It's hard to say for sure.
So what happens when you mix hardcore football fans with a massive group of Swifties? The Kansas City Chiefs are finding out.
That's for sure. They're experiencing a level of popularity they haven't seen before.
I bet.
I mean, there was a study, they looked at social media mentions of the Chiefs, and they found a over 300% increase during weeks when Taylor Swift was at their games.
So 300%.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Do you think that's just a temporary thing, or is it a sign of something bigger?
It's interesting because it's not just social media. There are reports of increased merchandise sales and even higher ticket demand.
Really?
Yeah. Some are calling it the Taylor Swift effect.
Wow. Okay, so there's a real impact. But we need to think about what this means for the NFL. They've always been kind of slow to embrace things outside of football.
That's true.
So are they starting to recognize the power of tapping into a wider cultural landscape?
You have to wonder. This isn't just about appealing to traditional football fans anymore.
So maybe they're catching on. I mean, they're even using Taylor Swift's music in their promotions now.
Exactly. It's a big change for them.
It really is.
They're experimenting with new ways to connect with audiences, and aligning with stars like Taylor Swift seems to be a key part of that.
So is this just a marketing ploy? Or is it a genuine shift in how the NFL sees this relationship with pop culture?
That's the big question, isn't it? We'll have to see how it plays out.
Definitely a lot to think about. Now, let's dig into how all of this is reshaping fandom itself. Because it's not just about football and music anymore, is it?
Not at all. It's about something much bigger. We're seeing the lines between different fandoms blur. Like, you have your sports fans and music fans, but they're not so separate anymore.
Right. Like with Taylor Swift and the NFL.
Exactly. And this isn't just passive interest. These fans are shaping the conversation. They're influencing how teams and artists connect with their audiences.
That's really interesting. And speaking of shaping the conversation, we can't ignore the media frenzy around all of this.
It's been nonstop.
Every little detail is being analyzed and dissected.
It's like they're living in a fishbowl.
And it's not just entertainment news outlets, it's everywhere.
You're right. Sports publications, social commentary, even political discussions.
It's like their relationship has become this cultural Rorschach test.
I like that analogy.
Everyone sees something different in it.
Exactly. It's fascinating.
And it makes me wonder, how is this scrutiny impacting how we view relationships in general?
That's a good question. It's almost like they're setting a new standard for what a power couple should look like.
Right. So is the media just reflecting a shift in culture? Or are they actually shaping our ideas about modern relationships?
That's a tough one. It's probably a bit of both.
Hmm.
But we need to be aware of these narratives and how they might be influencing us.
Absolutely. Because these stories can seep into our subconscious even if we don't realize it.
Exactly. It's important to be critical consumers of media and remember that what we see on the surface is often just a small part of the story.
Okay. So on one hand, we have this exciting cultural crossover. Fans are embracing both music and sports. But on the other hand, there's this intense media scrutiny. And that could be shaping our views on relationships in ways we don't even realize.
It's a fascinating paradox.
It really is.
And it highlights the power dynamics at play when you have these high-profile figures in such a connected world.
It makes you wonder, can the media cover these stories responsibly without resorting to sensationalism?
That's the challenge, isn't it? There needs to be balance. Because while celebrity relationships can be fun to follow, we need to remember that real relationships are complex, even the ones in the spotlight.
Right. We can get caught up in the excitement, but we need to be mindful of the messages we're absorbing and how those messages might be affecting us.
Absolutely. We need to be aware of the potential impact on our own lives and relationships.
So this brings us back to the NFL. How are they navigating this new world of fan engagement?
It's definitely uncharted territory for them.
They're being forced to adapt to a changing cultural landscape.
Right. Traditional boundaries are blurring, and fan expectations are different. It's not just about putting a winning team on the field anymore.
It's about creating an experience.
Exactly. An experience that resonates with a wider audience.
So they're facing a challenge. They need to cater to these new fans without alienating their core base.
It's a balancing act. But what's interesting is that the NFL seems to be embracing this challenge,
Right.
at least to some extent. We're seeing them try new marketing approaches, they're incorporating pop culture into their broadcasts, and they're partnering with artists like Taylor Swift to reach new people.
It sounds like they're realizing that they need to become part of the cultural conversation.
You could say that.
And this partnership with Taylor Swift seems like the biggest example of that shift.
Definitely. It's a bold move.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the long run. Do you think we'll see more of these kinds of collaborations in the future? Like sports leagues working with musicians and other entertainers?
It's definitely possible. It makes sense from a business perspective. But the key is authenticity. These partnerships need to feel real and organic.
Otherwise, they'll come across as forced.
Exactly.
So it sounds like the NFL and maybe other sports leagues are at a crossroads.
Yeah.
They can either stick to tradition and risk becoming irrelevant, or they can embrace this new kind of fandom and evolve.
They have a choice to make.
It's a pivotal moment.
Definitely.
But no matter what happens with the NFL, what we're seeing with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, it's a sign of a bigger cultural shift.
I think so too.
Like we're watching the old rules being rewritten.
It's an exciting time.
It is, because it's not just about football or music anymore.
Right.
It's about how we connect with each other, how we experience entertainment, and how we define ourselves in this crazy, complex world.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's what makes all of this so fascinating to talk about.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
let's take a closer look at how this is all playing out in the media, because we have a big role in this whole story.
They do.
They're shaping the narrative.
And sometimes maybe even shaping reality itself.
Okay. Let's dig into that.
Sounds good to me. So the media's role, it's complex. They're not just reporting on this whole Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing. They're kind of shaping how we perceive it.
Yeah, it's like they're creating this whole narrative around it.
Exactly. That narrative can influence how we see their relationship, how we see celebrity couples in general, and even how we view our own relationship.
And that's a lot of power.
It is, and I think it's important to be aware of that power, to be critical of what we're seeing and hearing.
Right, because sometimes the media can focus on the superficial.
Oh, yeah. The clickbait headlines, the gossip.
And they might miss the bigger picture.
Exactly.
So what can we do about that?
Well, we can start by being more mindful of the media we consume and how it might be affecting us.
Okay. Be more critical.
Right. Don't just take everything at face value.
Do your own research.
Exactly. Think critically about the messages you're being given.
And maybe even seek out alternative perspectives.
Exactly.
Because there's always more to the story than what's being presented on the surface.
Absolutely.
So, back to the NFL. How do you think they fit into all of this?
Well, they're in a tricky position.
Oh, sorry.
They're trying to appeal to a wider audience, attract these new fans, but they don't want to alienate their existing fan base.
Right. It's a delicate balance.
It is.
And the media plays a role in that, too.
Definitely. The way they cover the NFL, it can influence how people perceive the league.
And how they perceive this whole Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce phenomenon.
Exactly.
So it's all interconnected.
It is.
The fans, the media, the NFL, Taylor Swift, and Travis Kelce.
It's a whole ecosystem.
It really is.
And it's fascinating to see how it's all evolving.
I agree.
So
Where do we go from here?
that's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
What does the future hold for fandom? For the NFL? For Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce? For the media?
I don't have a crystal ball. I was afraid you'd say that.
But I do think we're at a turning point.
In what way?
The old rules are being rewritten.
How so?
The lines between different types of fandom are blurring. People are connecting in new ways, and the media is struggling to keep up.
I see what you mean.
It's an exciting time to be alive,
It is.
and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me neither. Well, this has been a really thought-provoking conversation.
Thanks. I've enjoyed it.
Now, let's wrap things up by considering a few final thoughts. Because this deep dive is about more than just Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. It's about the future of fandom itself.
I agree.
So let's explore that a bit more.
Sounds good to me. So we've been talking a lot about these shifting boundaries and this idea of fandom evolving.
Right. It's like everything's in flux.
Exactly. What we're seeing with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, I think it's just a small piece of a much bigger trend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at the rise of esports.
Okay, yeah.
The way traditional media and social media are kind of merging together. And there's this growing need for authenticity, for genuine connection.
You see what you mean?
It's like people are craving something more meaningful.
And they're finding it in these shared passions.
Exactly. Fandom is becoming this way to connect with others, to be part of a community.
It's not about fitting into one specific box anymore.
Right.
So how do sports teams, musicians, even brands, how do they adapt to this new landscape?
It's a good question. I think they need to throw out the old playbook.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. It's not enough to just target demographics anymore.
Right.
They need to understand this new kind of fan.
This hybrid fan.
Exactly. Someone who's driven by passion and a sense of community.
So they need to be authentic,
Yeah.
relatable, create experiences that foster those connections.
Exactly. It's about building communities, not just marketing to target audiences.
And what about the media? What's their role in all of this?
But you need to go deeper.
Deeper.
Yeah. Move beyond the surface level.
Get past the clickbait headlines.
Exactly. And really dig into the cultural significance of all of this.
So they need to be responsible,
Absolutely.
ethical,
Yeah.
avoid creating unnecessary drama.
Right. It's about informing and engaging audiences, not exploiting them,
I like that.
you know. As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm actually feeling pretty optimistic.
Me too. Why is that?
I think we're witnessing a cultural awakening.
In what way?
It's a shift towards something more inclusive,
What
more
is-
connected, more meaningful.
It's like a reminder that culture can bring people together,
Yeah.
spark important conversations,
And challenge the status quo.
and who knows what the future holds. Maybe we'll see even more unexpected fandom mergers,
I hope so.
more collaboration,
More creativity.
and more media narratives that actually reflect the real world.
That would be great.
So as you go about your day, think about this. What cultural boundaries are you willing to cross? What unexpected connections are out there waiting to be discovered?
Yeah.
How can you use your own voice to contribute to this ever-evolving cultural landscape?
Something to think about.
It is.
You know, the future of fandom is fluid, dynamic,
Okay.
full of possibilities.
So embrace it.
Definitely.
And until next time,
Yeah.
keep diving deep.